everyone. Welcome back to Limitless Live. I'm Olga Benyaminov. So happy that you are here today, as this month, the month of April, we're talking about character. And we've been building that from the very first week of the month when we talked about week one about identity. And then last week we talked about discipline. Now, both of these combine together to our discussion of today. Today, I'm going to step into leadership. That's my personal favorite topic because not when I talk about leadership, I'm not talking about people's titles. I'm not talking about positions or not even authority, right? Leadership is something else. And I want you to understand what it is through character because today I'm going to talk about character driven leadership, and that's huge. Let me ask you something before we start. Who are you when things don't go your way? When people disappoint you, when situations feel like they're unfair, and when it would be easier to react than to actually rise. So who are you at these moments? Because that moment, those specific moments are the moments that define your level of leadership. And there's a very powerful idea that I just read in a book, The High Road Leader by John Maxwell. Love that book because it explains how leadership is very simple, but it's not easy. When others go low, leaders go high. And I'll explain what I mean. Anyone can react. Anyone can just go and blame someone else. Anyone can just lower their standards to make it easier. But leaders choose the high standards. Leaders choose much higher standards, especially when it's hard. Because leadership is not about control. Leadership is about influence through the character of who you are when no one is watching. And let's make this more clear because when we say leadership, leadership is not position. Leadership is a decision. You don't need a title to be a leader. You lead from your home. You lead at work. You can be a leader in a relationship. And in other words, leadership is basically how you show up every single day. And I'm going to say that again. Who are you when no one is watching? And the truth comes from Jim Rohn, another person that I absolutely admire. You cannot lead others until you can actually lead yourself. So if you can't control your reactions, and if you can't keep your word and stay grounded under pressure, then leadership becomes impossible. And emotional mastery is so crucial. We talked about that during the month of March. So let's elevate that idea of mastery of your emotions. There is a very powerful skill as a leader that you can develop, and that's your state management. Because leaders don't just manage time, they manage their emotions. Most people just react when they're triggered. They shut down under pressure, or they even speak based on emotions. But leaders, what do leaders do? Leaders pause. They ask, what is the right response here? Who do I want to be in this particular moment under pressure? Because the difference between reacting and responding is your character. Now, in the book that I just read, John Maxwell, he defines what it means to be a high road leader. There's certain quantities and certain qualities that you should have in order for you to be defined as a high road leader. High road leader chooses integrity over convenience. You do the right thing even when it's uncomfortable. That's integrity. High road leaders choose humility over ego. They don't need to prove anything, they don't need to argue, and they don't need to dominate. They have humility. High road leader also have responsibility over blame. Own your own role, even when it's entirely your fault. You take the blame. When it's entirely somebody else's fault, take your share of that fault. And that's what it means being a high road leader. You take responsibility on your actions. You know when to say, I messed up. You know when to admit that it was your fault. And that also has to do with ego, which I think I spoke about that a few sessions ago, a few months ago, because ego is very hard to overcome. But when you understand that there's something more important than that, when you understand that humility and responsibility is so much more important than the ego or self-fulfillment. Another very important quality, which is so hard for many people, and I know that, forgiveness over resentment. We hold on a grudge even when things already passed. Learn to forgive. Letting go is not easy, and I know that. And sometimes you might hear me and you say it's easy for you to judge. You haven't been in that situation. Absolutely. But forgiveness is not for them. Forgiveness is for you. When you forgive someone who had wronged you, when you forgive a situation, it doesn't mean you forget. It just means that you let go of something instead of carrying that emotional weight. Why would you carry that weight? Why would you make yourself hurt because of someone else? Let it go. That makes you a high road leader. And the last one that I want to cover today is growth over comfort. Be in a mindset of growth. Choose evolution instead of getting stuck and staying stuck with what's comfortable. Change it even when it's uncomfortable. That's not weakness. That is power. That is the true power of a high road leader. And the hard truth, if you want to be real about this, taking the high road is really not easy. Sometimes you won't be understood. Sometimes you will not be appreciated. Sometimes you won't be validated. And you might lose some people in the way. There is a saying, it's very lonely up there because not everybody will follow you. Not everybody follow this high road. And yes, you will end up losing some people that just can't follow you. But the shift is you are not choosing the high road for them. You are choosing this because of who you want to become and who you are becoming in the process. Because every time you lower your standards for someone else, what you're doing is actually weakening your character. And every time you rise, you strengthen your identity as a leader. I want to make it personal. Ask yourself right now, where in my life am I being pulled to take the low road? Is it in a difficult relationship? Do you run away instead of dealing with it? Do you stop talking instead of actually figuring out in a nice way? Do you shut down in a conflict? Is there a situation that feels unfair and you dwell on the unfairness? Ask yourself, what would be the high road version of me that I would take in this moment? Would you respond calmly instead of reacting? That's a big one. It's very hard to become less reactive, especially when things are not as you want them. The hardest thing is when you don't get what you want, right? So a lot of us become reactive. But if you just calmly think about it, take responsibility instead of blaming. Stay grounded instead of being emotional. Yes, it's not easy, but step into this uncomfortable moment to become the better version of you. And this week, I want to challenge you. Just choose one situation and consciously take the high road. Not once, but every time that situation comes up. It might be anything that you're dealing with. Take it and apply it to your own life. But really be consistent and take the high road. What would a high road leader do at that situation? And I want you to start seeing yourself differently. Stop saying, I am trying to be better. Start saying, I am a leader. I lead myself. I lead through my actions. Every action you make shows your leadership. I lead through my character. Everything you do shows your leadership. And not when you do in public, what you do even in private. And I keep mentioning that it's who you are when no one is watching. If you told yourself, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to go to the gym, did you wake up in the morning and said, that's okay, I don't have to go today? That's not being a higher road leader, because you did not honor the word that you said to yourself. Be true to yourself, because leadership is not just what you say, it's what you demonstrate and what you actually do consistently. Now let me leave you with this. Anyone can lead when things are easy. But true leaders actually revealed in those difficult moments. So next time life tests you, and it will test you many, many more times. The next time somebody pushes your buttons, the next time you feel triggered, pause. Ask yourself, do I go low or do I choose to go high? Because that choice defines your character. That choice would define your leadership, and believe me, it would define your life. Leadership is not being in charge. It's not about being in charge. It's about choosing the high standards every single time. I hope that resonates with you, and I am looking forward to see you again next week when we're going to talk about the emotional strength and the adversity that many of us follow. I'll see you again next week, guys. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Have a great week.